This is my first time in Dingle. Actually, my first time in Ireland, which is crazy to say. But I'm very happy to be here, and it's a lovely event. Thank you, Jam, and everyone involved. So I'm introducing the broadcaster panel, and we have some very, very talented, insightful people on the panel that we're going to sort of give you some really good insights into, as a student, how you can approach broadcaster with a pitch, idea, concept, and they'll talk a little bit about their career paths and some of the success stories and some of the projects that they're working on with young animators. So right here we have Lindsay O'Callaghan from Nickelodeon, and then we have David Levine from Disney, and Vicky Schroederis from YLE, and Pauline McNamara from RTE. So they can kind of tell you a little bit about, give you their title and a little bit about what they do. And then we're going to, in a nutshell, kind of hear about their journey, kind of like Bobby and Orion. Not that much detail, but a little bit about their path. So do you want to start, Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay O'Callaghan from Nick UK. It's also my first time in Dingle, and my first time in Ireland, which is crazy with my last name. I work across all the UK commissions and also across some of the international commissions. I also work on some of the milkshake shows too. I head up the acquisitions for Nick UK, and I also sit on the International Programming Council for Nickelodeon. So if you do pitch one territory, everyone hears about it via our council that we sit on.
Hi, my name's David Levine. This is actually my second time in Dingle. I was here a couple of years ago. I did a keynote. My role, I oversee the programming, production, strategic development for the kids' channels across Europe, Middle East, Africa for Disney. Orion did a great job sharing with you a lot of what our team does and a little bit about our channels. I also serve as the general manager for the kids' channels for UK, Ireland, and the Nordics. And I also serve as the executive sponsor for the Pride Group at the Walt Disney Company in UK, which is the resource group for LGBT+ and allies. I think Ryan gave a pretty good overview of our channel, so I'm going to hand over at this point.
Hello, I'm Vicky Schroederis. After 17 hours of journey coming here, I felt like I came from Winterfeld, but actually I came from Finland. I've worked for a Finnish public broadcaster there, and my job is to look for content to our linear TV blogs on our free VOD service called YLE Arena, and our YouTube channels, and also we are very present on Instagram, Facebook, and you name it. I think, the next social media platform, I think we have to do some content today as well. We broadcast in 3 different languages in Finland, or Finnish, Swedish, and Same. The 2 latter are the minor ones. One of the best known Finnish brand is actually YLE's Tiny 2 magazine show for preschoolers, 2 to 6 years old. It still reaches nowadays on linear TV 68% of the target each week, which we consider quite a big, remarkable achievement. And our free VOD service, YLE Arena, gets about 4.5 million views per week on our kids' programming. And I think it's quite okay result, as we are only 5.5 million persons living in Finland. So about 50,000 kids are born in Finland each year. So that's my...
Thank you.
So I'm not Jackie Edwards.
Yes, I just realized that.
Very sorry to say
Jackie.
I do not have the BBC purse in my bag, but so I've already been up, so I'm not going to waste time. I'm Pauline McNamara. I work with the RTE Children's Department. I commission live action and animation for children under 17, but effectively our animation is really for under 7s, and we try and support animation for 8 to 12s in whatever ways we can as well. We work with Irish studios. We try to support them to get involved in co-productions, and we also support them for local funding initiatives so that we can get very truly Irish content as well for Irish kids that won't necessarily have an international future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And yes, thank you for filling in for Jackie, who could not make it.
I can't be that glamorous, but I'll do my best to kind of.
So, Lindsay, maybe you want to just kind of let the audience know a little bit about sort of how you sort of came to where you are now, I guess, in a nutshell.
So I went to Bournemouth University, which I've met a lot of people that have gone to Bournemouth University during my time in the industry. I studied multimedia journalism. Way back then, I wanted to be a kids' TV presenter. Having done a screen test, I hated myself on camera so much. No way did I want to be on TV, but decided I did really want to work in kids' TV. My course focused on TV, radio and print, which I thought would give me the best opportunity to get a job somewhere in that arena when I left. We had to do work placements. One of my work placements was at Ginger TV, which was owned by someone called Chris Evans back in the day. And it went very well, and I got offered a job there. Chris ran off with Billy Piper, and commissions dried up, and so I very quickly moved on to the BBC. And worked in the archives there, filing contracts back in the day. Well, you could have written a sitcom about the eclectic bunch that we had there, but it was good fun. And within 6 months, a job did come up in BBC Children's in their acquisitions department, which I went for, kept everything crossed, went for the interview, went home and cried because I thought it went so badly, but it didn't. I got offered the job, which was amazing. I learned so much there, but when they did announce the move to Manchester, having family all down south, it wasn't for me, so the job for Nickelodeon came up at the right time. And 11 years on, I am still at Nickelodeon now in the senior programming manager role, having gone in at exec.
Fantastic. David?
I loved comics as a kid, and I really wanted to be a superhero, but I didn't get any superpowers, so I went to law school. And I thought I would do good and I wasn't going to be a cop, so I thought I would be a prosecutor, and I put away the bad guys. But I couldn't get a job after law school because it was a recession, because it was the 90s. And I wound up getting a job, though, at Marvel Comics, because I had a comic book in my closet, and I pulled out the bottom and it had a little address, and I called them and said, do you have any openings? They said, no, but send us a resume, and I did. But they hired me anyway. And so I wound up in the law department as a lawyer working for Marvel Comics. And that eventually took me to a very small company called the Itsy Bitsy Entertainment Company, which made itself known through a big property called Teletubbies. We were the representative of Teletubbies for North America and South America. And at Itsy Bitsy, I did legal work, but my boss was really cool and let me also get into acquisitions, and it got me into the global marketplace. So I was evaluating content as well as negotiating deals and writing contracts and all that boring stuff. In that area, I wound up pitching a small channel called, at the time, Playhouse Disney Channel, with a new show that we had called Booba. And Disney didn't take it, but I had a great connection at Disney. And when it came time to look for a new job, I rang them up and said, hey, you got any openings? And they said, no, but the president of Disney is going to be out in New York. Why don't you have an informational breakfast with him, which I did. And that afternoon wound up being a guy who wound up hiring me to be head of programming for, reporting to him as oversee program planning at Disney in LA. And I was there for about 10 years in a variety of roles, and eventually moved out to London about 4.5 years ago, where I now get the chance to work with Orion and lots of other great folks. So that's how I got to where I am today.
Very, very interesting. And
still no superpowers, though.
Vicky,
Are you sure?
I'm hoping.
How about you, Vicky?
I thought I was actually globetrotter in a certain way because, I mean, I've been studying in different universities globally, and in American one, in a German one. Eventually, I ended up in Finland to the School of Economics, and I have a master's in business in there. And on the side, I was always interested in arts and history of art, and so I studied history of art and history of culture at the University of Turku as well. Those studies are still ongoing, but I'm hoping to finish them before I retire. I've been working in really odd businesses. I mean, I've been exporting Finnish furniture to abroad. I've been working in shoe upper factories in India. I've been, not as a laborer, but as a consultant. I've been working at one of the biggest insurance companies in Switzerland. And then I was actually out of job. And I was actually in London also. I was the London connection for EF language travelers, one of the summers. And then I was looking for a job, and then I saw this a noticement in the newspaper that Wiley is looking for a program buyer. And eventually, after the process, I got the job. But my job was actually to buy fiction, non-English-speaking fiction, because we in Finland, we have a lots of tradition of airing fiction that comes from Germany or France or Spain or whatever, non-English-speaking countries as well as fiction for UK and America and Canada and so forth. So I speak 5 languages, so it helped get the job more or less. I started with the fiction, and on the side job, it was actually look after the kids programming as well, and extreme sports. How connected are these 3? So, but eventually, Wiley wanted to put more money and invest on the kids' properties, so I went for the kids' side. And I was actually offered a job with the big guys as well to do the fiction, but I'd rather took this route. And here I am.
Fantastic. And Pauline, do you want to just reiterate a little bit about your path?
I didn't tell them about that.
Oh, you didn't? You were saving that. Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it brief though. I did the communications course in DCU at a time where you still had to explain to your parents what a communications course was and what the job potential out of it was. And at the time, I think there were only 2 communications courses in the country. And when I came out of college, it was kind of coming towards the end of the 1980s, late 1980s recession, kind of fairly similar to now. And at the time, there was kind of no chance of work, no chance of getting jobs. And the year before us included Ardal O'Hanlon and Barry Murphy and all the guys who went straight to London and became comedians because they figured there wasn't going to be work. So at the time, radio was about to become the big thing because the Broadcasting Act was about to announce a load of new licenses for radio stations. So I went and did a 6-month course in radio production in a FOSS centre out in Loughlinstown, where they had converted the butcher's apprenticeship walk-in fridge into a state-of-the-art radio studio. And I spent 6 months there learning, or just kind of doing practical radio production, and got an internship with a television production studio out of it, and that was kind of my first step into television. And really, I've been working in kind of across all genres in production in the independent sector for about 15 years, until I took the job with RTE Children's about 13 years ago, and I've been doing children's ever since. I've only been doing animation for about 7 years, but I love it. I mean, it's kind of, I think everyone in the room will agree that people who work in children's love children's programs, love working with children's content, and it's not a stepping stone to somewhere else. It's kind of people who do it because they like it.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Did you, Lindsay? Thank you for that interesting journeys for everyone. Do you want to show your clip reel before, and then we'll get into a little bit about the content.
Yeah, our reel will just give you a flavour of what's coming up over the next year on Nicktoons and Nick Jr. in the UK.
And Vicky, you have a reel as well.
It's a reel about some of the programming what we are airing on our Wiley Freebot service arena, iPlayer.
Great,
so
great,
there's a preschool thing, and then it's about something what we have for 7 to 12 years old as well.
Okay, we'll have a peek at that one from Wiley. Very good. So I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, just about maybe you can let us know a little bit about some of the programs or incubators type things that Disney is working on to help students or young animators.
I mean, we don't have a studio ourselves, so we will generally connect great students and great talent that we find with studios. There's a really great example that we have of some young talent on a show that I guess some of the folks here are working on. So if we go to so just a little bit. So Tommy and Marcus are 2 creators that were working with a studio called Anima Studios, and this is not. Which way should I be? Pressing. There we go. There they are. So they were working with a studio called Anima Studios, and they were brought together because the twins had their own website where they had shorts and music videos and content that they had produced themselves. And I bring this as an example because this is all while they were in the same position as you guys here today, and hopefully you can draw some inspiration from it. So they had some short films, and we were really impressed by them. And we had a project which Ryan referenced before called XDFC, where we wanted to produce a range of shorts around football in time for the Euro Cup. And so we asked them to do a short, and we were really impressed with what they were able to do. So this is a little bit from their short. Tommy has created a robot to play with to show the jocks up in terms of football, the football game, and he's uploaded all the commands into the robot, but unfortunately it doesn't really work out so well. And the audio sync was a little off on that. But so they basically made that in their own little studio in Oslo, and we really loved what they were able to do. And so we had a really fun project coming up through the pipeline that we wanted to connect them to, called Space Chickens in Space. And we basically have made them the directors for the show, and they have done just an incredible job. And here's them talking about the show. So we have every year or so we wind up doing different projects in short form. This past year we did a project called Project Hope. We made a contribution to that. It's a global program put together by the BBC and Sky, and we produced a short with Ragdoll Productions with a young animator as well. So those are different ways that we work with young creators.
Fantastic, wonderful. Lindsay, do you want to talk a little bit about what Nickelodeon's up to?
Yeah, I won't go into too much detail because obviously a lot of you were here for Alexi's discussion around the short programme, but we do put out a monthly kind of theme. It can be very loose, ranging from sci-fi to buddy comedies, and ask for people's ideas to come in. Obviously, as Alexi mentioned, Pony came out of that, and we are able to fully fund kind of development. So Pony came in as a short, it then went to script. We then funded a colour animatic. It was then researched fully, and from that it did get a green light, and it's amazing. And you know, full credit to Alexi because it is the first thing out of the States in that space for 6 to 9 year olds, which is, you know, testament to the creator and the team involved. We also, as well, just as an aside, run really great internships at Viacom. We're currently looking at a programming internship for the UK, which gives people a really great insight into how things work and allows people to build up contacts and learn just about what broadcasters are looking at.
So can you maybe give us a few more examples of just how a young animator or a young student can kind of approach you? Obviously you have this internship program. Do you have any advice, I guess, just for people that are starting out and just need that first push, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, attend things like this. There's other great local kind of events that exist, like CMC in Sheffield, where you can pitch broadcasters and meet broadcasters, which are great for getting your name out there. Focus on what you want to do. There's nothing worse than sitting down for a pitch meeting and someone roll out 20 ideas. You know, really put your effort into what you think is going to be great. Do your research. Don't sit down and pitch me a show about a family of pigs. We've kind of, we've got that covered quite well. And also, don't kind of, although a CP line is wonderful to have and awesome and ticks a lot of boxes, don't let that be the reason for your idea. If an idea is great, it will go into CP naturally. To go back to Peppa, her eyes are on the same side of her head. That's a CP nightmare. But she's still one of the biggest properties out there and has been for over 10 years now. And just, you know, have a look what is in the marketplace, what's different, what people are doing, believe in what you do, and just watch loads of content, you know, whether it's on TV, YouTube, wherever, just see what's happening. There are so many creative people out there that will give you wonderful ideas and that are putting their content out there all the time.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Vicky, how can young animators or students, how should they maybe look at approaching YLE, or how do you work on that front?
Of course, we are working with Finnish animators and animation companies. So therefore, this is the only thing what I could offer here is to buy your film. So if you have finished an animation film that will work for the target 2 to 12 years old in that bracket, I would be really happy to have a look at it and see whether we would be able to broadcast that on our special slots during the Christmas or Easter or Independence Day, whenever we have a special programming, either on our linear channels or on our free watch service Arena. So that would be possible. But I mean, and then if you get through like Pauline's fantastic theme of animation, and then it becomes a series, then we can look at the pre-buying it or working a little bit together with. And I think there is lots of public broadcasters who are really joining in for many projects that speaks to us as a public broadcaster. So, and one thing what I want to, I mean, Lindsay explained very good how to approach with the pitch-wise, but as a public broadcaster, I really want that the project will have something to give takeaways for the kids as well. So when the kids are watching it, they will get something, a little bit deeper meaning in it as well.
Pauline, do you want to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, well, I've already spoken about the animated short scheme, so I won't go back over that. But that and the frameworks short animation scheme are two kind of really great ways in. But I'm just thinking, as Vicky is speaking there, you're forgetting about collaboration that we had.
Exactly.
Yeah, so a company called Ink and Light, who are an Irish and Finnish company. Had an idea. We've been kind of working with them on developing stuff, and they've been looking for trying to get projects off the ground. So they came in the kind of intervening period with a project which was 15 by 2-minute short comedies called Harry and Bip. It wasn't called that at the time, but they had this idea. It was really funny. It was really cute, really nice animation. And because one of the company was Finnish, and they have a base in Finland as well, they were able to access through ILE the Finnish Film Foundation funding.
Exactly.
And we gave them money, and the Irish Film Board gave them money, and they were able to access, I think, Section 481 as well, maybe not. But in any event, that's another way, is to look for kind of collaborations with other public service broadcasters, or it doesn't have to be public service broadcasters, but I suppose we have a remit to try and support you and try and kind of help you to find ways to market with your projects. So, I mean, that screened on Irish and Finnish television, and I think Monster Animation have been distributing it as well, so it's sold beyond. But it was a nice, for that company, it was the first first animation project that we had been able to actually contract with them on, and it's a really nice body of work. Yeah, I mean, and everything that everybody else has said about pitching, the big thing is to know your audience, know the age group really well that you're trying to talk to, know what's on the channel already, and just be really clear on what your idea is.
Mm-hmm. Great. And David, you've obviously talked a little bit about how you're working with young animators. Any other sort of advice in terms of how they should first steps, I guess, to approaching Disney?
Yeah, I think just to reiterate what folks have said, I think from a Disney perspective, taking a look to see a little bit of what obviously is on our channels. Ryan talked about it a bit before. What we're generally looking for are more comedy-based series, definitely in that 6 to 14, but in that 7 to 9 is in terms of a ratings and a programming target. That tends to be our sweet spot. From a ratings and target point of view. We definitely are looking more for gender balanced shows, so things that do really appeal to boys and girls. We've certainly had a lot of girl-leaning shows in the past, and we do need, from a programming and ratings perspective, need to figure out ways to attract a broad and gender balanced audience. So figuring out whatever that looks like. And I think to reiterate something that Ryan said earlier is trying to approach people and creating a human connection. That always seems to work. you know, there's incredible resources out now that frankly weren't available before. Frankly, to do a little cyber stalking of some of the people you're going to be meeting with. And that's always a really good idea to take a look, seriously, to take a look on LinkedIn. Don't look on their Instagram accounts. Look on LinkedIn to just get a feel for who people are and where they come from. And if there's some way that you can figure out a way to make a connection with someone on a human level, that's a great way in. I basically got my first job because I fell back a little bit on my chair in the interview and totally copped to it and made reference to it actually in a small way in my thank you note. And it was just touching on that human connection that allowed me to get my first job.
Interesting. I'm just curious to know, you talked a little about what you're looking for comedy. Obviously, everyone's talked a little bit about what you're looking for. Are there any sort of things that students should watch out for in terms, I mean, Lindsay, you talked a little about what not to do. Does anyone want to add to that in terms of things that you kind of, how do you approach that when things are going badly, maybe in your mind? How do you approach that with someone that's young and maybe nervous?
Sorry, just ask that again.
Just
how do we make it easy for
if
people?
someone's pitching an idea,
Yeah.
and if it's maybe not going well, or if
Yeah.
it's maybe they're really on the wrong
Well,
path, how do you sort of help someone get through that or deal with that?
So I suppose in every, and I've done the pitch and a pint and the kind of pitching sessions here before, and I suppose as broadcasters or funders, we're really conscious that it's a nerve-wracking. I was going to use an expletive, but I'm terrified sitting up here. So I think we're all really conscious that somebody sitting down to kind of like, you know, spill their passion project to you is really vulnerable. And I mean, we're only doing our job if we're actually helping you to make the most of your project and to kind of, you know, to express yourself as best you can. So, I mean, it's you know, there are tricks and there are ways, and you can never underestimate the importance of just rehearsing. You know, before you go to a pitch, do sit down at the mirror, do sit down with a good friend or family member and play it out to them. I mean, you can never over-rehearse something, and it's that kind of fear thing of when you actually start hearing your own voice and it sounds alien, and you know, you have to kind of, you know, there are tricks to actually kind of ground yourself in a pitch and research them. I mean, that's the beauty of YouTube. There are kind of tutorials, there are loads of ways, and do it a lot. And just bear in mind the fact that the people you're talking to want the best for you. They want your project to be great. And I mean, I suppose if you're asking how we can help, I mean, be open to, there's nothing worse than somebody coming in and pitching you something that isn't working, who won't listen to your suggestions for how it could actually kind of maybe work. You know, just be open to the fact that any suggestions coming your way from broadcasters and funders are looking for ways to try and make your project work.
That's great advice. I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about once you start working with a young, talented creator, how do you sort of nurture them along in the process when they're sort of, you know, off doing their own work a little bit on something? How challenging is it to sort of hold on to really good talent in today's, it's just such a content-heavy world in the kids space, and everyone's wanting to really get great talent, and there's a lot out there. How do you nurture and how do you sort of keep that talent so that you want to do multiple projects maybe with someone? Who wants to take that one? Okay, go ahead, Liz.
I think for us, the creator is key. So, for example, we've talked about Pony quite a bit. The creator and Blades will direct the series, because for us, having them at the heart of it is what will keep it on track and be the reason that we still love it at the end as much as we did at the beginning. One of the reasons we picked up Becca's Bunch as a global commission was because Connor, the creator, was associated with it. So again, we knew its heart would remain. So once you do have someone working on a production, obviously everyone knows how long animation takes. You have them for quite a long process. Giving them that opportunity, they're going to feel more aligned to kind of want to work with you and provide a positive experience. Alexi's married up lots of creators with producers and built so many good contacts. I think they then feel loyal to your brand. It's looking after people and just showing them how it all works, because it is alien when you first start out.
David?
Yeah, I think for us, we're essentially the commissioners, the commissioner position. So we're not necessarily having the direct relationship with lots of individual artists and creators. We work primarily with the production companies. But I think the overall strategy for us is really to be upfront and as honest as we possibly can with who we work with, so that when things don't work out, and they often don't, as you saw earlier today, that people still walk away with a positive feeling of wanting to be able to work with you, and make sure that everyone's learned from the experience, so that when you come around the next time, you're that much smarter. So I think that's one of the key aspects for us in terms of continuing to build all these relationships that we have, not only here but across the entire region, is maintaining an honest and open relationship, and communicating the positives and the negatives when things go awry.
And Vicky, can you speak a little bit about that from your experience?
I don't work that much with students, to be honest, because I'm in an acquiring business. I did last year over 50 deals, and I negotiated them and so forth. Unfortunately, I don't have the time for it. But what I know from the Finnish angle, we try to help them with with the whole process as well. But it's a learning curve, in my opinion, and we all try to do our best, both ways, to help them to grow up and to become an amazing talent. But it's sometimes the road is very clean and clear, and sometimes it's a little bit rockier.
Right. Can any of you speak to maybe how the evolution of, I guess, providing incentives or monetary resources, what kind of questions do students or young animators have? What are they looking for, do you think, when they choose a broadcaster to pitch to?
Money.
Do those conversations, obviously money, yes,
Fame.
but fame, money, glory, all of that. But how has that evolved? Does anyone want to touch that a little bit?
Well, I think one of the advantages of being able to work with a company like Disney and a company like Nick is that it gives you a really broad platform. So for us, where we sit in the UK, we oversee about 60 channels and across about 120 countries. So it's a pretty broad swath of territory. So if you're able to land a project with us, it gets pretty high visibility and pretty broad exposure out of the gate to a very, very large audience and a very varied audience. So your work will be seen by so many different kinds of kids around the world. And then quite often we share and we work with our American colleagues, we work with our Asia Pacific and Latin American colleagues, so your content goes global. So that to us is a competitive advantage that we feel we bring to the table, and so that's certainly something that makes us someone that folks want to do business with.
Lindsay, did you have anything? I'm not sure how closely you work in terms of structuring of the programs or the schemes.
Yeah, Alexi's kind of our resident expert for development.
okay.
I take him over the baton when it's kind of into production more. But no, it is just about looking after them and teaching them and finding the right, production company for the project.
That's great. I think we're a little bit early, but I think there's probably going to be a few questions from the audience. So maybe we can. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
One thing I
quickly?
forgot I didn't mention. So in addition to one of the things that we also have is an amazing internship program in London. We've had a history of incredible interns, and they are now. One of them is a manager of current series. Several of them are working on 101 Dalmatian Street in various capacities. So, I encourage you to go after those kinds of experiences, because the relationships and the experience that you get can really bear fruit. And we've been such an incredible beneficiary of that. So a lot of those faces that you saw on Orion's board were interns with us, and it's a testament to our team as well that's able to train them and raise them up. So it's It's a great environment.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have a question for anyone up here? There must be a few questions. Oh, got one here.
Hi. Do you ever consider maybe reworkings of old favourites? I would love my grandchildren to see programmes that I saw a long time ago, and I just wonder, is it always going to be new? I just noticed with the Finnish reel that there were some from a number of years ago that were obviously still popular with children, and I just wonder, is it always new, or
No,
Ivor the Engine, rhubarb and custard? See, that doesn't mean anything to anyone here.
I think if you look around kind of the schedules, it's clear that that kind of remakes of popular old series are kind of very much of the moment, like the Clangers, Dennis and Nasher, like Zig and Zag, which wasn't originally an animation series, but Zig and Zag was an Irish puppet live action thing, was co-funded by RT and CBBC, mainly CBBC, but and produced here and still is very popular with audiences. So definitely, I think there's a huge appetite, and also when stuff really worked, it kind of shortcuts you don't have to do the testing thing. You can kind of refresh stuff.
Yeah, just to as a teaser for the session later, so we're going to have a big session on 101 Dalmatian Street, which is a new, updated version of the classic movie and book. And so we're very, very fortunate to have a treasure trove of brands and characters at the Walt Disney Company across our Disney library, Marvel and Star Wars, to be able to bring and rebring to audiences and new generations of kids in new and fun and different ways. And you'll see a lot about that later today. And that's something that we are super, super proud of and super excited about.
And we and Wiley, we are also reproducing also new series of Moomin. But having said that, the old favorites, we still air, for example, Caillou after 20 years. So I think it is like, new. There is always new kids watching this content.
Thank you. Question?
Hello. With an increased interest in streaming and video on demand, has that changed your attitude to acquiring or developing projects at all? Just as it's more of like a non-traditional way of broadcasting, television and stuff.
Very good question. Our current priority is still linear. It's the most accurate measure and the most easy to monetize. That not being said, we do have a YouTube channel. The Nick Jr. app launched a couple of weeks ago when it snowed, so that was perfect timing. But yeah, at the moment, linear is still where our focus is, and when we're looking at picking things up, while we want them to be able to work on other platforms, we still want children to come back to the TV. It's still the most popular thing, even though it is competing with numerous things now. But that is still our priority, and for the foreseeable future, it still will be. If something's got a great story, it will naturally, pan out to other areas. And yeah, so it's an interesting world we're living in. But
Yeah, I think we're in a similar boat to some degree in terms of, from a Disney perspective, that our focus is driving eyeballs to the linear channels, as that's really what's driven a lot of what our overall business is. But in terms of nonlinear platforms, we also have apps and YouTube channels, and for us, those are great ways to test out concepts and test out creators. The XC football shorts, which we've referenced a couple of times, those were primarily designed for nonlinear platforms and for YouTube. And we ran them on the linear channels as well, but they were made with that idea in mind. And anytime that we produce any kind of series, it's just a given at this stage that in addition to 26 half hours or 52 11s, you're also doing 13 times 2 minutes or 26 times 1 minute. You're always doing, as part of your process and as part of your order, short form content for nonlinear platforms, in addition to all the other material that you might be producing for social media, et cetera.
At Wiley, we found out that preschoolers are still watching linear TV, but most of the kids who are age of a YouTube plus 7s, they really watch our content on digitally. So that's why we are putting so much money and also content on our Arena service, which is very important. That most of the content for teenagers are only broadcasted on Arena. Nothing is on linear TV anymore.
We're very conscious that our audience is consuming content digitally as well, so through the RTE Junior app and the RTE Player. It hasn't particularly changed the way we approach making stuff, because the budget still lies with linear. But it just reminded me of something. I was just looking through and I was looking at what about home production and home animation, and I suppose as public service broadcasters, both myself and Vicky would be very conscious of what our unique selling point is as public service broadcasters, because our audiences all have access to Disney and Nick and love them. They're really successful. A lot of the brands that we have on RTE Junior, for example, are also available throughout all the other channels. So when we're trying to consider what our what the point of us is, it's to bring Irish voices and Irish stories and Irish children's faces in the live action to our audience. So for us, even though the projects like Nellie and Nora and Puff and Rock and that we've all collaborated on and co-financed, and they're all international projects and they go down really well with international audiences, for us the really important thing is that Irish kids are hearing Irish accents and hearing stories from an Irish caravan park or whatever. And the other interesting thing, just when you're talking about the digital consumption, is I just had a quick look at the streams on our app, and in 2016 Zig and Zag was the top streamed show on the RTE Player for top streamed kids show, and 3 of the top 10 streams were for Irish animations. So I can go back, I have the figures on the other years, and it's the same story. Basically, Irish kids want to watch and hear Irish voices on television. So part of what would I suppose what would be unique, or not unique because you do it as well, but what is really important to us is to bring Irish kids, but also to be really conscious of inclusivity. So projects like Pablo, where the central character is on the autism spectrum, or Punky, where the central character is Down syndrome. Projects like that are projects that aren't necessarily going to be taken on by commercial channels, but we see them very much as where we need to be at. So, in terms of what we're looking for, we're always looking for projects that wouldn't necessarily get green-lit through, non-public service broadcasters. And we're also looking for opportunities to kind of try innovative stuff. So, for example, there's a series we've just contracted with a new company called Turnip and Duck, called Critters.tv. And I'd probably get killed for using the comparison, but if you think it's an animation series featuring wildlife families watching live action wildlife documentaries and commenting on them. So, it's a really fun way. For us, part of our remit is kind of educational with a small e, but it's a really kind of fun way into wildlife, for example. It's a really, there's really good information in it, but it's really funny and it's really innovative because it's kind of flipped the whole thing. It's like animated characters watching live action, and criticizing it. But so anything, projects that have some kind of a difference or an innovative dimension are attractive to us.
Great. Thank you for your question. Does anyone else have a question from the floor? No? Everyone's starving.
Hungry.
Everyone wants lunch.
Hungry.
Well, we purposely wrapped this up a little bit early because we know that lunch is coming up. So thank you to the panelists. That was very great. Wonderful.